Okay, we're going to relook at a data set that we looked at in the video for chi-squared. Remember that in that situation, we saw that there was an association between a student's gender and their political leaning. So since there is an association, we might like to do some estimations. For instance, are more females liberal than males? So we want to compare the difference in the population proportions. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a confidence interval to do that. So we'll start off by doing a 95% confidence interval to estimate the difference in the proportion of females, which is P sub f, and the proportion of males who consider themselves to be liberal. Okay, so remember with the confidence interval, it has two pieces. There's always a point estimate plus or minus a margin of error. And the point estimate is very simply, if we don't know the difference in population proportions, we can always get a sample proportion of females who said they were liberal, and then the sample proportion of males who said they were liberal, and subtract them. That gives you your point estimate, and then we'll attach a margin of error. The formula for margin of error is messy. You don't have to do this by hand. Instead, I want you to be able to use StatCrunch to find the interval. So if you look at the lesson 10 notes, you'll see screenshots for creating a 95% confidence interval for the difference in population proportions. And that's what I have here. So P1 is the percentage of females who are liberal in the sample, and P2 is the proportion of males. And they're different, so that's our point estimate, is 0.1399 approximately. And the actual confidence interval is right here, okay? So keep in mind what that's telling you. If I just round that to a couple of decimal places, I get 0.006, 0.274, okay? And think about what that's saying. You're saying that with 95% confidence, that the difference in the percentage of females who are liberal and males who are liberal fall in that category. Do you notice that this interval only contains positive values? So since the interval is estimating the difference, this tells me that the percentage of females who are liberal is greater than the percentage of males that are liberal by between roughly, 0.5% and 27%. Okay, so let's look at another example, same data set. And in this case, we're going to look at want to estimate the difference in the proportion of females and the proportion of males who consider themselves to be moderate. Okay, so again, just putting the data into StatCrunch, here's the difference in the sample proportions of those that are moderate, and the confidence interval is right here. Okay? So keep in mind now, this is the percentage of females who are moderate minus the percentage of males who are moderate, and we're saying with 95% confidence, that difference is somewhere between negative 0.112 and positive 0.158. Okay, now see that this interval straddles. It contains both negative values and positive values. So what that's telling me is that this difference might be zero, because zero falls in that somewhere in this interval. In other words, if that difference is zero, I'm saying I can't prove that there is a difference in the percentage of females who are moderate and those that are males. Doesn't seem to be a difference. Okay, the last part we might want to look at is estimating the difference of females and males who consider themselves to be conservative. All right, and doing the same thing with the data, entering the conservative data, I get this confidence interval. And again, this is estimating the percentage of females who are conservative versus males. And we get an interval that goes from negative 0.25 up to roughly negative 0.076. See that this interval only contains negative values, and think about what that means. So if you take two numbers and subtract them and you get a negative value, it must mean, right, that the second value that you're subtracting from is greater, okay? So that means that we have a higher proportion of males who are conservative than females. Okay, all of this, like I said, can be done with StatCrunch. No need to do any hand calculations for getting confidence intervals for the difference in two population proportions.